Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Emily. Maybe you recognize me from the very first live session of the day. But for those of you who maybe didn't join, I'm Emily. I'm an international admissions and recruitment officer here at Carleton. I see that many of you are saying hello in the chat, which is awesome. It's so lovely to see all of you. Feel free to let us know where you're from, send those emojis through, and let us know if you have any questions throughout this session. I'm really excited to be talking to you about getting involved and making an impact at Carleton. So, what life is going to look like outside of the classroom. So, for many students that I talk to, when they think about university, they often think about mostly the academic side of things. So, they're really focused on the programs that we offer, the specific program that they're going to study, the courses that they're going to be taking. Perhaps they're even thinking about the exams that they're going to write or the papers that they're going to write. And this is all a huge part of university. But I find that my university experience, and I think a lot of people can relate, is that the university experience or the student experience becomes a lot more rich and meaningful when you get involved in the community and when you follow something that you're really passionate about. So, in this session, I'm going to help you explore the different ways that you can become involved at Carleton and make the most of your time as a student and as a Raven. So, one of the most common pieces of advice that I like to give to students is follow your passion. So, maybe some of you are coming to us and you already know what your passion is. Maybe you play a musical instrument, or you love the theater arts. Maybe you love to debate or give speeches, or maybe you love to write or travel or volunteer. Whatever it is that you love to do, we likely have a student organization that you can join that will allow you to explore this different area. So I really encourage you to become involved, pursue what you love doing. If you don't know what you're passionate about or what you want to do, that's okay, because we have a specific afternoon dedicated during your fall orientation week called Carlton Expo. And Carlton Expo is when one of our athletic facilities is filled with every single team and club and society on our campus. They all have different booths. This year it's going to be in person, which is awesome. We haven't been able to do that the past couple of years. And this is your chance to explore, talk to students who are running the different clubs that you have, and really get a sense of how you can join and what it will be like if you do join. So, I want to talk a little bit about the different clubs and societies that we have on campus. Now, the difference between a club and a society is that a society is academic in nature. So, if you join a society for the program that you're in, that means that you're meeting other students who are also in your program. These societies often run different social events throughout the year. There's usually even a formal event. The one that comes to mind is the Science Student Society, and they always have a science ball every year where people get to dress up, and it's a formal event. And it's a great way to get to know other people who are in your faculty or in your program. There's also lots of different educational opportunities that these societies run throughout the year. For example, I was part of the Criminology Student Society, and every single year, a group of students would go to Kingston, which is about 2 hours away from Ottawa, and visit the Kingston Penitentiary, which is a high security prison, and something that we often learned about in many of our classes as well. Now, in terms of the clubs, I mentioned some of the things that maybe you're passionate about, and this is where the clubs come in. We have so many different clubs on campus. Just to name a few, we have the climbing club, we have debate and speech, we have a gaming club, international relations society, we have a pre-medical society. So for those of you who maybe want to go to medical school or pursue something in the health field, then that might be a great way to a great club to look into. And then we also have a women in business club. So those are only a few of the many opportunities that we have for you to become involved. And like I said, I really, really encourage you to go to Carlton Expo, which is during fall orientation. And that way you can really see everything that we have to offer. And you can figure out how to join and make the most of that experience. Now, one of my favorite ways to get involved that I really want to highlight for you is doing something called Alternative Spring Break. We call it ASB for short. And so this is a really great way for those of you who like to make an impact or like to, help make a positive difference in the world. This is a great opportunity for you. And it even involves a travel component, which I think is really neat. So it's an experiential learning program that concludes with a week-long trip that happens during our winter reading week. So every single student has a week where they don't have classes in February. We call it Reading Week. And that's when the trip will take place if you're participating in alternative spring break. So in February of 2020, we were able to send students to 5 different destinations in the United States, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. And each trip was focused on a specific theme, including immigration, education, food security, emerging markets, and sustainability. So students who participate in alternative spring break spend the months leading up to it, actively preparing for their trip by conducting research on their destination, attending pre-departure sessions, participating in local community engaging learning, and fundraising for their trip. So it's a really neat opportunity. You can learn more about it on our website. And I really encourage you to check it out if that's something that you might be interested in. Now, if you're looking for opportunities throughout the year that don't necessarily involve a commitment for an entire semester or an entire year, we also have some really cool things for you to join. One of my favorite things that I love to participate in every single year was something called the SOAR Leadership Conference. So when I was a student, I would sign up for this every single year. It was a day long. It was always, I think it was usually the third Saturday in January. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It was a leadership conference. The day always started with a keynote speaker. So one year we had Chris Hadfield, who's a famous astronaut. In 2020, we had Tessa Virtue, who is a famous Canadian athlete. So there's a different speaker every year who's very well known. And then you get the opportunity to participate in many different sessions throughout the day that really will help you to develop and build on your leadership skills. Some of these sessions are run by staff members at Carleton. Some of them are run by students at Carleton. And some of them are run by members of our Ottawa community who don't necessarily work at Carleton or go to Carleton, but who can offer some really valuable information. And that SOAR Leadership Conference is just one example of one of the many different initiatives that pop up throughout the year. So if you're looking to become involved, develop some of your skills, meet like-minded students, we have so many different very unique and awesome opportunities for you. Now, you're probably wondering, or you probably might be hoping to hear from a student. And so I am going to introduce you to Rosabelle. Rosabelle is one of my colleagues, and she's also a recent graduate, and she was an international student. So Rosabelle, would you like to maybe introduce yourself and let us know where you're from and what program you studied?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Emily, for having me here today. I'm so excited to share about my journey with prospective Carleton students because I was once a prospective Carleton student just a few years ago. So like Emily said, my name is Rosabelle. I am originally from Nigeria in West Africa, if you're not well acquainted. I was born and raised there and only moved to Canada when I was 16 for school, just like many of you. And I studied environmental science. That was my major with a minor in human geography.
That's awesome. And that is such a young age to move to a different country. So I'm sure we have students here at this session who are probably in the same boat. So for those of you who are, Rosabelle is going to be in the admissions chat after this. And it would be super valuable to visit her at her booth and maybe ask her some questions about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rosabelle, can you tell us a little bit about your first year at Carleton and the different ways that you became involved?
Of course. So during my time at Carleton, I was involved in 2 major ways. One of the ways was that I was very involved in the Nigerian Student Association. It's called KUNSA, Carleton University Nigerian Student Association. I was a member and then I became an executive, and I can talk about that more a little bit. And then the other way I was involved was that I was a student worker at CUSA. Now, I'm sure Emily has mentioned CUSA, and maybe you've heard the term in other sessions, but CUSA is basically the Carleton University Student Association, and that's the student union on campus. So I worked as at one of these service centers for 2 years. It was 2 of the best years of my Carleton career. And I could tell you how I got started. I got started in my first year. And Emily actually mentioned already what events that was at. It was at Club Expo. That was how I found the Nigerian Association and CUSA. Now, Club Expo is basically like a club market. You get to go to a club market in your fall orientation. And I'm so happy that you will all get to experience, hopefully, the fall orientation in person because it's so invaluable. But that's basically how I met Kunsa and Cusa. It was a huge hall in the athletics building, and I basically got to walk around and look for just things that could interest me. And then I heard some Nigerian music, and I knew, wow, I found my people, I found my community, and it was so welcoming to find people who had the same accent as I did, people who listened to the same kind of music, shared the same kind of culture that I did. So I knew that I wanted to get involved. And of course, I was a first year student. I didn't really know anyone. I was kind of shy, so I didn't start volunteering right away. I actually started just as a regular member. I was just attending events, trying to participate a little bit in the events. And then I wormed my way up into becoming a volunteer because I really wanted to give back and I really wanted to find out how they, did their events and how they set up and stuff. So I started volunteering, and then before I knew it, I found myself running for events coordinator. I did that in at the end of my first year, and I won. It was such a surreal moment for me, and that really, really inspired me to want to do more of Kunsa. So at the end of my second year, I ran for president, and I also won. And that was like the best. Thanks, Emily. And that was literally the best feeling in the world. I got to work with amazing people. I've gotten so much experience from that. Like, I feel like if someone said, "Hey, Rosabelle, we want you to set up a concert in August," I would be able to do that because I've made those connections. I've gotten that experience, and it's invaluable. I definitely 1000% recommend getting involved. But that's just one way I was involved. I can talk a little bit about that if you have specific questions. But the other way I was involved, and as I mentioned earlier, was with CUSA, and I also found CUSA during Club Expo. And it's a funny story, but the reason I went to their booth is because they were giving out prizes. So, and I wanted to win something. So I went over to their booth and I won some prizes. And I was like, hey, I want to keep on winning prizes. So I'm going to attend more events. The sweatshirt I'm wearing right now, I actually won it at Carlton as well. And that's one thing you find about Carlton. There's so many opportunities to like win stuff, and there's so many giveaways. We even have a giveaway right now, and Emily mentioned it earlier in the introduction, so I definitely recommend getting engaged with that. But that's the side. I started attending more CUSA events, and then I worked my way up into volunteering, and that's where I found the food center. The food center is basically the food bank on campus, and what it does is that it provides food and household items for students, because as a student, you have a lot of things to worry about, right? Like you're probably thinking about how you want to submit your assignment that is due in 2 days, or you're thinking about how you're going to go to your job in case you have a part-time job. I had a part-time job. So you have a lot of things on your plate, and food should not be one of those things. Like everyone has the right to, or rather, everyone should have the right to access to food. So that's what the food center did. And as I mentioned, I did work there for 2 years. It was paid, so I was able to get some money. And it was such an amazing experience. Like I will not trade the experiences that I've had at Carleton outside of academics for anything in the world. It really has set me up for success. And as Emily mentioned, we're colleagues, right? I currently work in the admissions office, and I've probably engaged with a few of you over email or the live chat. So if my name sounds familiar, that's probably where you know me from. But yeah, this is my first job after graduating, and most of the experience that I've had was through my student jobs, through my student involvement. So 100% recommend getting involved for sure.
That's awesome. I love that you got involved right away. And of course, the prizes are always, or the swag, the fun swag is always what draws people to our fun booths. I remember being in first year and, wanting to win the sweater or,
Yeah.
wanting to grab the pen. Um, so that's awesome that you were able to, be the president of the Nigerian Students Association as well as have a part-time job. So I just want to ask you, how did you find balance? Because I know that sometimes the thing that holds students back from becoming really involved is being worried that they're going to have less time to focus on their academics. And that's a valid worry, but I also know that when you become involved, typically that your whole experience becomes much more meaningful, and it can actually becoming involved can actually help students with achieving higher grades because it helps them to become aware of their resources and supports. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you balanced, all of those things and what worked for you.
Yeah, of course. Um, Obviously, getting involved, being worried about getting involved and that distracting from school is valid. The reason that you're at Carleton is to get your degree, right? Is to focus on studies. So anything outside of studies, it's definitely understandable that you'll be worried. But I actually found that the opposite held true for me. Having more responsibility actually made me it made me very serious with my time because I knew that, okay, I can't spend too much time doing this. I need to allocate time for that. So it actually made me so much more responsible with my time and so much more organized. But that being said, I did have a few tips that helped me and could help you too. I'm a very visual person and I like to write a lot. So just I found that having an actual schedule in my day really, really did help me focus on what I needed to focus on. So I would literally, when I wake up in the morning, I would write a list of things that I needed to achieve, and then I would actually allocate times to that. So if I'm doing that activity and it's taking way longer than I allocated time for, then I know, okay, maybe I'm spending too much time on this. Maybe I need to start, working on my biology paper and stuff. And also there's lots of resources on campus. Like we have like Emily mentioned, we have student societies, academic societies. So if you find that you need extra help with something, there's a resource, I promise you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I found that when I became very involved as a student, my time management skills were really like I really honed in on them, and I think that a lot of students find the same thing. And like Rosabelle said, there are so many different supports available to you as a student. Um, and that getting involved really opens your eyes and kind of uncovers everything that Carleton has to offer. And I find that it makes students feel confident and feeling very okay with using all of these resources and supports. So
Exactly.
that's some great tips. And it's actually a really great segue into my last question, Rosabelle, which is if you can give all of our prospective international students one piece of advice about coming to university or about coming to Canada, what would you tell them?
Um, I mean, get involved. Just start, honestly. Start getting involved. And I know it could be daunting because as a first year, like I didn't know anybody. I was very shy. Still technically am, but it's so much better. But getting involved really did help me find my people, find my community, develop so many skills that I don't think I would have learned from just sitting in my chemistry class, right? I have so many real life skills that I can apply to real life situations that if I didn't get involved, I don't know how I would be able to develop them. So just start. And you don't have to start big. I started small. I started as a regular member. I didn't start by running for president. But when you start, you're on your journey. People say that the first step of the journey is usually the hardest. And it is technically true, but when you take that first step, you're on your journey. So you don't need to worry about starting anymore. It's no longer a barrier to entry, right? And the good news is that the step in starting is not that difficult. You can start just by attending events, and that's starting, right? You don't need to start by running for an election if you're not comfortable with that. So yeah, that's my tip for you. Pro tip, just starts.
That's awesome. Rosabelle, thank you so much for sharing your experience. This has been so valuable for all of our prospective students to hear.
I'm so happy to be here, honestly. And if you have any questions, like if you want to know more about anything that I've done, please, I'm in the booths, in the admissions booth. So please stop by. I'm kind of friendly. So I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. And Rosabelle is being modest. She is so friendly and she's happy to share more about her experience. So I really encourage you to hop in to the admissions chat. We have our closing message or our closing live session after this. And then we'll be in the admissions chat for the last hour of the event. It's going to be myself, Rosabelle will be there, and a few of my other colleagues. So please join us and ask us any questions that you would like to. So again, thank you so much for joining us for this live session. We hope you've enjoyed all of the live sessions today, and we're really looking forward to chatting with you in the booth in just a few moments. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.